I wish to welcome you to our discussion on the impact or the effect of sociological foundations on the aspects of values, morals, and basically what we may call character formation. Now, my understanding of this is when you talk about sociological foundations, sociology is about the composition of a society. You are looking at the key components of a society, which includes we basically look at the family, and then we will look at school as part of the society, and then the larger community that a learner or a child will interact with. So, looking at the family, and I'm looking at the home. The family here, I'll use it synonymously with the word home or interchangeably. Now, I came across very interesting discussions from a very renowned scholar and person in the SDS circles, that is Ellen G. White. And as I was going through this topic, I considered a number of discussions she has presented on character formation. So when you talk about values, it you talk about morality, it comes under that big umbrella we call character formation or character development. And so I'll mention some aspects of value or some aspects of character development in my presentation. So I'll begin with what she presents. Much of the ideas I'll share I've obtained from that great scholar and inspired lady. From there, then I'll give my input, and I think at some point I'll allow you people to share your views regarding the same. Now, she says education begins at home. It is in the home that the education of the child is to begin. Now, here is the first school for the child. Now, the parents serve as the very first instructors that the child comes across. Now, the child learns through guidance and throughout life lessons like respect. Remember, these has to be taught at home and also be experienced. It's not just about teaching, but it also has to be experienced. Obedience, self control, among others. Now, educational influences of the home are decided um, or they are actually carefully chosen by the parents. Now, they are in many respects silent and gradual. Some of these lessons, uh, as one of my professors used to say, some lessons in life are caught. Not all lessons are taught. But if these values are exacted in the right way or shared in the right way, they have a far-reaching impact on the life of the child. Now, if the child is not instructed the right way, then that gives room, according to the LNG White, for Satan to educate the child through various agencies. Now, in fact, I came across one of her quotes where she says that the first 7 years, it may not be very far from what psychology also gives, but the first 7 years in a child's life, they are so crucial that a lot of life changing lessons are learned. Now, parents remember, that's according to this same lady, she's giving advice that parents, you should remember that home is a training ground, a training school in which children are to be prepared for the home above. Now, the home above here is heaven. That the kind of education the children receive, beginning from the home setting, should be of eternal nature. That if they are denied this kind of education, then that creates room for a very difficult future for these children, because then they'll be taught by what sometimes we know as the world many lessons and values that may not be positive values. In the homeschool, the children should be taught how to perform practical duties. The keyword there is practical duties, everyday life. However young they are, when they show interest, the mother should give the children some simple task to do each day. When they're able to perform some basic tasks, even being sent, that is one way. And when you send and then require obedience, those are not values being promoted. So you see, okay, she continues to say, it will take longer for her, and the mother here has really been given a very critical role in this discussion. She has been placed on the central and very focal point of our discussion. But remember that she has to lay a good foundation for character formation. It should also be noted, I like what this scholar has used. Actually, she says that the mother is the first head teacher and the head teacher in charge of the life of the child. It is her duty to teach her children how to perform the household duties skillfully and quickly. That time is of essence also. Now, the life of children at home should be pleasant. That sounds more like ideal, but for parents who are enlightened, for parents who are educated and God-fearing parents, this should make a lot of sense. At the same time, the mother or the parent, in this case, should teach obedience to the children. That the children should grow to appreciate some burdens or duties. Now, the parents should educate children in habits of work, what she calls industry, with their hands, the physical involvement. Now, as parents, give your children something to think of, something to do, keep them occupied with some useful work. Now, she further argues that parents who truly love their children will not permit these children to grow being lazy, okay? Being lazy, and habits of ignorance. I mean, ignorance here, one, about God, two, about duties. She makes a very strong statement, and I want to finish with that contribution, and then I look at what people also in the secular world have said very closely to, very close to what she has said and in harmony with what she has said. Now, where there is idleness, Satan works with his temptation to spoil life and character. So that at no point should children, even at tender age, be idle, be occupied with something useful. If the youth are not trained to on useful labor, whether they'll be rich or poor, they are at the risk of destruction. Satan will find employment for them. Remember, we said if they're idle, then the devil will find employment for them. Very strong words. Now, let me tie closely to what I began with. I started by saying there are three levels of society that we'll look at, and I've spent a few minutes looking at the family. Before the child is ready to go to school, the first and important values and morals have to be taught in the home setting. Unfortunately, sometimes this opportunity is missed. We become very busy as a generation that people. We end up entrusting our children with people who do not subscribe to our value system. That you get a case now where parents are detached from children, that good which the parents should have taught the children, nobody is available to teach them. So parents should take every opportunity to teach children these values, the morals, the principles, and basically start off the process of character development. The atmosphere at home should provide that a scenario or situation where the children's character will be formed and the best characters will be formed out of the initial stages of a home setting. It is when this is done, and if that is done right, then there's the next stage of the society where the child will go to when they now go for formal schooling, where we have some element of, a written out curriculum. And I like a definition I came across. I think it was offered in among the many definitions we came across, that curriculum really includes that which is planned and that which is not, because then that is a holistic view and approach to what a curriculum should be, that which is taught and that which is or that which is planned and that which may not be planned, for the experience aspect of it, what the children or people go through. So when this child is handed over to the next person in the society, in the line of society, now the child is handed over to a teacher. Parents are normally careful on how they choose schools for their children for formal schooling. They'll want to get schools which subscribe to some value system that they also agree with. I don't think if you're out there as a Christian, you'll want to take your child to an Islamic kind of institution, because then the principles that run that institution are different from the ones you're running on. So, as much as possible, parents try to look for which environment, school environment, now will give this child um, the atmosphere that they're almost familiar with. Now, let me use the illustration of Baraton. Children in Baraton have found it very easy to adjust to our own primary school around here, because the interaction between these children and the outside world is very close, especially when they meet on Saturdays for some church activities. And then, as age mates, they end up finding themselves, a number of them, in another setting called a school. It prepares very good ground for them to fit. And also, it's like continuation. Now, once again, the environment around Baraton gives the parents an opportunity, because of the value system, which may not be very far from what is covered at home. That then, as a parent, you're not worried what your child will go through, because you know who the teacher is, you know what they stand for, which is not very far from what you stand for as a parent. But picture a scenario where there's a disconnect, that the value system of the teacher and the value system of the parent who has begun the schooling and the character formation of the child uh, are not in harmony. Look at the kind of confusion then the child will go through. So, as a curriculum developer, you and I should factor that one of the, as we come up with policies, we should provide an opportunity that when learners move from the very first school, which is the home school, they go to the next form of school, that there is a smooth transition, which many a times misses. That is why you'll find children now, the first day in school, they'll cry because the environment is totally different to what they were expecting or used to. But if the school environment was made close and to really take a resemblance of the school at home, then the children will easily adjust. And remember, the teacher at school momentarily is stepping into the shoes of the mother or the parent who is away and out of the picture for the time being. So, this replacement, how suitable is the replacement, even for that short period? How does a child relate to this intended or planned replacement? How will they blend and bond? It is very important. Now, the third category of or aspect of society, which is the general community, does interact with the child or the learner from time to time. Even when the child is at home, he or she gets to interact with the outside world, but the interaction is limited to a very small circle of people. But now, around school again, this child is now expected to build relationships. with a larger community called a school, a class. It is when the child is exposed to a larger group, or the community or society. Let me use the word society, which gives rise to sociology or sociological aspects. When you talk about sociology, then we are looking at the society. So the child then is now interacting with a wider society. As a parent, again, you're worried. What values are being brought into school by the wider society? What kind of experience, what kind of exposure and interaction is my child having with children from other backgrounds? It is safe and really good to know when your child is going through a system where you are actually all, as parents, coming from almost the same background and subscribing to the same school of thought religiously and even academically. But now look at, what is this child? The child now will learn to interact with others. Sometimes the child now will become physically aggressive or bully others, or the child will be bullied, which will have an impact on their character. They may also come across children whose language is not polished, or whose language is not appropriate. So then you observe, as your child is coming back home, that they are picking some mannerisms which are a bit worrying. You will even realize the language of your child, who is now going to the formal school, has changed. So that level of society has an impact on the value system, or generally the character development of your child. And so you still have to be alive to that fact and work very closely to ensure that what you promote at home is really what is being promoted at school. It's not as easy as I put it. It's a tall order. So, in summary, let me say what somebody has given, who may not be necessarily from the religious background, having said what Ellen G. White says. This particular source I came across says that a home still remains the main institution. Remember what Ellen G. White says, it's, the home is the first school. This one says the home is the main institution affecting life. Now, look at the big picture here, the whole life and the growth of the child, the home. The family, which is actually the basic social unit, exerts significant influence on the social, emotional, and moral development of the child. His or her personality and value system are affected by the family. Now, in planning any relevant curriculum for the learners, the curriculum planners should be familiar with the family and the home conditions of the learner. Therefore, the intellectual climate of the home and attitudes and the atmosphere of parents towards education affects the behavior and accomplishments of this child in school. And by the way, a child who is coming from an abusive home, or a home with a lot of family challenges, will exhibit that in school. It will affect their concentration in school. Let me finish with an experience I came across. I was reading some extract somewhere on the social media that a child lost a mother when he was very young, and he was in the care of the father. So one time, after the mother died, the child's performance started, the boy's performance started dropping. So the father kept on changing him from school to school until this boy landed in the hands of one teacher. And then the teacher discovered the child was a source of ridicule from others. They would laugh at him. He was clumsy, naive, untidy, coming late. So, but the teacher decided to give attention to this child. it is through that attention, I'm paraphrasing the whole experience, it's through this experience that the teacher discovered that this child had lost a mother. The story has it that at one point this child loved this teacher so much that one time she gifted this teacher with, of course, we don't subscribe to that as Adventists, but this is a different setting. She gifted the teacher with the mother's jewelry, a necklace, and a bottle of perfume, and told the teacher, kindly, this is very precious to me, apply this. And later on, this child said, this reminds me of my mother. And when you put it on and apply this, it gives me this kind of feeling that I'm with my mother. It actually broke the teacher to tears. So she discovered the reason why this child was not doing very well academically. The atmosphere back at home had changed. A pillar had been lost, the mother figure. The father was doing his best, but he could not replace the mother's love. So the child at that point got affected. But when this teacher provided, of course, not to replace fully the mother, but the child was so young to remember exactly the mother, but she remembered a bit about the mother. So the teacher again took that part of the mother, and the story has it the boy from that point on started being tidy, keeping time, and he was now shining academically because of the support that the child got from the teacher. So there's a component I'm not been able to really deal with exhaustively, the aspect of the general society, but you see, it is integrated in the child's interaction. Even when they are at home, they still interact with the larger community, what we're calling the community. So the sociological aspect of it, or the societal aspect of uh, education, plays a very key role. You cannot design a curriculum, you cannot plan a curriculum without factoring in the society, the community where the learner will be or comes from. Thank you for listening to me. I'm looking forward to your critique. And kindly remember, when you see this video, remember to subscribe so that it helps me also to grow as a scholar. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to your input.